My name is Fred Stella, and I am what is called the Pracharak, or Outreach Minister for the West Michigan Hindu Temple. The Hindu community has had a presence here in Grand Rapids probably since about the mid-70s, but we've only had a home, a real building, for about 4 years now. So we're very happy to have that presence here. So Pracharak, Outreach Minister, this is the kind of stuff I do. And I would like to begin by reading from one of our scriptures. Let me say this, that when you're in a forum like this and you're asked to present on a particular subject, the challenge is that sometimes we think, well, if you don't know what the core values, the core doctrines of a religion are, how are you going to be able to focus on a particular point? So, since I don't have the time to give a Hinduism 101 talk, I'll just try to focus on the most important points. One thing is that we have a variety of scriptures. We do not have a scripture. And one of our scriptures is a collection of writing called the Upanishads. Upanishad means to sit and discuss. And this is from a particular Upanishad called the Taittiriya Upanishad. And it says, give with faith. Do not give without faith. Give with sensitivity. Give with a feeling of abundance. Give with right understanding. So let me just take those phrases, and then I have a story to tell you from another scripture of ours. It first of all says, give with faith. Well, first of all, it says just give, and then give with faith. So, obviously, giving is important. When it says give with faith, it's not the kind of faith that one has in a creed. Hinduism is a non-creedal religion. But this kind of faith is give with the faith, give with the belief, give with the trust that what you do is good and noble. And it says, then obviously the opposite, do not give without faith. And then it says, give with sensitivity. So that is to say, give without lording over the recipient of your largesse. Don't make the person feel small. Don't make the person feel ashamed. As Rabbi said, if you have to call something a loan, even though it is in fact a gift, by all means. We don't have that particular dictum in our scriptures, but that certainly makes good sense. And then it says, give with a feeling of abundance. I like that. Give with the feeling that even when you don't have a lot, that you will, in fact, be rewarded in some way. Doesn't mean that this is not a prosperity gospel. This doesn't mean that if you give $100, you're going to get $1,000 back. You don't know what you're going to get back. You may not get anything back. But give with that feeling of abundance, that feeling that you will be taken care of, no matter how generous you are. And then it says, give with right understanding. Right understanding very well could indicate what we call karma yoga. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard the word yoga before. And if I said something like, after I leave this forum, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do yoga, I would imagine that you might think, okay, he's going to lie down on the floor, put his legs behind his head, which I can do, by the way. But not here and not now. That is called Hatha Yoga. This is what is being taught at yoga studios, in some gymnasiums, and health clubs and all of that. That's not what I'm talking about when I say yoga. Yoga means union. There is an understanding that we are all united in a very, very real way. That we all ultimately share the same soul. While there are individual souls inhabiting every person's body, at the same token, on a different level of reality, that soul is one. In the same way, I often say, if I asked if this table is solid, of course, most intelligent people would say, yes, of course it is. Look, it holds my water just fine, and it would hold it there for 100 years. The water might not be there, but the bottle would be, and the table would last just fine. At the same time, at a deeper reality, the table is made up of molecules and atoms and protons, electrons, and there is space between those elements, those particles, and those particles ultimately are made of light. So someone from a physicist's standpoint would say, no, the table is not solid. So what we do is we are always balancing both realities. So in one sense, we are different souls. In another sense, we are part of the same soul. Yoga is that discipline which leads to a greater understanding of that unity with each other and that unity with God. And one particular yoga is called karma yoga. And I'm sure you've all heard the word karma before. And karma simply means action. But it refers to that fact of physics that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Everything we do has a reaction, and that's really not up for debate. Every religion believes in karma to some degree or another. So when it says to give with right understanding, that means give with the understanding of karma yoga. Karma yoga means that path, if you will, that vehicle which will further your understanding of this great oneness with our neighbors, with the planet, and with God, which means you give without any thought of any result. You give simply because it is right. It is what we call the Dharma, the correct thing to do. And so this is the right understanding that is talked about in the Upanishad here. I'm going to tell you a story, and this is from a scripture called the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is one of our two great epics. We have two, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And those two are like our Iliad and Odyssey. And they are chock full of history, allegory, and myth. So the story I say that I'm going to tell you, parts of it may be true, but other parts probably not. I'll leave it up to you to take your best guess. At the end of this epic, there is a great feast, and royalty is present, and they have just won a major battle over evil. And as in a sense of thanksgiving and great gratitude, many, many gifts are given to the poor. Gold is given, grain is given, cattle is given, and they're all just rejoicing in this. And in the middle of this, a mongoose walks right into the center of the palace. And I know what you're thinking, like Chico Marx, why a duck? Why a mongoose? I don't know. But it's a mongoose. And the mongoose says, I see no charity here. What charity are you providing? This isn't charity. And everybody looks, what are you talking about? Look at the gold, look at the grain, look at everything that everybody's getting. He said, let me tell you a story. I once lived in a village, and in this village was a very, very poor family. And one day, a holy man, what we call a wandering sadhu, a swami, again, a word that people in the West, they've heard, but they don't know what it is. A swami is someone who has taken vows of renunciation. And oftentimes, they would live without a home. The rule of thumb, if you didn't live in a monastery, that you couldn't live anywhere for more than 3 days at a time, and then you have to move on. And their only means of support is by begging. And it is considered to be the greatest honor to provide these swamis and swaminis, who are women, with sustenance. And this swami knocked on the door of this very poor family, and the husband answered it and welcomed him in. Now, one phrase that is in our scriptures, in the Vedas and other set of scriptures, is the guest is God. And if you've ever been a recipient of Indian hospitality, you will understand they take this quite literally. So this holy man enters in and asks to be fed. So he's placed at the table, and they have very, very little food. And the father gives his entire bowl of porridge to the Swami. And he just says, no, I will do without food so that this holy man can eat. And after he finishes the porridge, he says, I'm still hungry. And then the wife says, it is my duty then to give up my porridge. And he eats all the porridge. Says, I'm still hungry. There are 2 little children there. And the father says, you must give the Swami your porridge. And the Swami eats everything and says, I'm good. Adios. I'm on my way. And that was the last scrap of food that this family had. And I watched them as they starved to death in giving the Swami that food. That is charity, and I dare any one of you to show me that kind of charity. Now, you have to keep in mind, in Indian and Hindu mythology, oftentimes stories are told where virtue is taken to an absurd extent. I mean, if somebody came to me and said, you know, a Swami visited my house and I gave them all the food I could possibly have, and my kids and my wife starved, I said, what are you, an idiot? I mean, as the rabbi said, we have what's the word? Duty, thank you. We have a duty to our family and our local communities, absolutely. But this story simply indicates the charity where you're simply giving of your excess is nothing compared to the charity where you're giving from their very core, and that there might be sacrifice involved. It doesn't mean that you can't provide from your excess. It simply means that something very powerful happens to us inside when we provide from, again, that core, that part of us that is perhaps slightly troubled by the thought of having to give. But if it is given with the thought of abundance, if it is given with the idea that no reward is expected, we spiritually grow from this. We, theoretically at least, learn of our connection with each other and learn of our connection with the divine. There are many other parts of Scripture that talk about the charity, that talk about the need to provide. It's wonderful for you to have a forum like this. And as part of the 2012 Year of Interfaith Understanding Steering Committee, you have our blessings, and encourage you, if I may give a very brief public service announcement, to go to 2012gr.org, and you'll find a plethora of activities. You can sign up for our weekly bulletin, the Interfaith Forum, which we send out. We have activities on a weekly basis all the way to the end of the year.